Hello, I'm Dan Cotter, president of True Value's retail-owned Cotter & Company. True Value members know that college basketball is an important part of the lives of ACC fans, and we recognize the glorious history and tradition that has made ACC basketball a great conference. That's why we're proud to bring you this special presentation of the True Value ACC Dream Team.
Since 1953, more than 1,000 student-athletes have laced up their sneakers to participate in what has become one of the biggest success stories in the history of collegiate athletics, Atlantic Coast Conference basketball. From Wake Forest's Dickie Hemrick in the league's first season to Duke's Christian Laettner almost 40 years later, the ACC's top performers have filled the national spotlight with the kind of magical moments and dazzling performances that can last forever in the hearts and minds of basketball fans everywhere. But imagine an opportunity to build the perfect team, the chance to pick the 5 best players at their respective positions in the history of ACC basketball. That's just what we asked ACC fans to do, and now it's no dream. It's no longer just a fantasy. The result is the ACC Dream Team. We begin with point guard. The player that coaches say is the most important on the court, as a great one can affect every possession at both ends of the floor. First, the point guard must be a top-notch decision maker, an extension of the coach on the floor. The ACC's best point man had another thing in common. Whether it was through ball-hawking defensive pressure or an ability to take care of the ball and find the open man, they never left any doubt as to who was running the show. South Carolina's John Roach may have been the ACC's first superstar point guard. The 6'3" New Yorker lifted Frank McGuire's Gamecocks to national prominence, earning consensus All-America honors in both the 1970 and 71 seasons. Roach earned 3 All-ACC selections, 2 All-ACC tournament honors, and was twice named ACC Player of the Year. John Lucas proved to be the missing ingredient Lefty Driesell needed to build his empire at Maryland in the early 1970s. Between 1973 and 76, Lucas was the catalyst for a series of star-studded teams that remained ranked in the top 10 for most of his 4-year career. Lucas's leadership skills and basketball talents were acknowledged with a variety of individual awards, including 3 All-ACC selections and 3 All-ACC tournament honors. Georgia Tech's Mark Price burst onto the ACC scene in 1983 when he led the conference in scoring as a freshman. Price followed his eye-popping 20 points per game rookie performance with 3 consecutive All-ACC seasons, leading Bobby Cremen's Yellow Jackets into the nation's top 10 in 1985 and 86. With his heady floor play and a near-automatic spot-up jumper, Price finished as Tech's second leading scorer and still ranks among the ACC leaders in points, assists, steals, and free throw percentage. In 1984, when Wake Forest signed Tyrone Muggsy Bogues, most fans snickered. 5'3" was too small to compete in the Atlantic Coast Conference. 4 years later, Bogues left the Deacons as a basketball giant, the all-time career leader in assists and steals in a league long recognized as one of the nation's best. Muggsy's quick feet and quicker hands enabled him to lead the conference in both assists and steals for 3 straight seasons. North Carolina State's Chris Corchiani stands alone atop the ACC and NCAA record books after 4 years as a starter for the Wolfpack. Between 1988 and 1991, Corchiani teamed with sharpshooter Rodney Monroe in the Pack's famed Fire and Ice backcourt, compiling an NCAA record 1,038 assists and an ACC record 328 steals. Corchiani was known for his feisty play and remarkable court presence. His 20 assists in one 1991 contest is the ACC's all-time single-game record. The fans' choice for Dream Team point guard is North Carolina's Phil Ford, who was everything a coach could want at that position. The lively 6'3" playmaker started his first game in Tar Heel Blue, the first Dean Smith player ever to start as a freshman. Ford responded by leading Carolina to a 23-8 record and the ACC Tournament Championship, and became the first freshman ever to win the Everett Case Award as the tournament's most valuable player. His play left a lasting impression on everyone who saw him play.
Well, I love Phil Ford. I think he is, I hate to say this because there have been a lot of great competitors play in the ACC, but I love the way Phil Ford played. If I had to draw up a player that I wanted, you know, a player to be like, it'd be like Phil Ford, the competitor. I mean, he was he'd dive on the floor, knock you down, dive in the stands, and you know, when the game got at the end and they gave him the ball in the middle of that four corners, I mean, he's just impossible to stop. And what I always liked about him, he and I are good friends. I recruited him, and you know, I went to his house and ate barbecue and everything when I was recruiting him. And I just think he might be the greatest competitor that ever played in the league. I mean, he hated to lose. He'd do anything to win. And
well, it's something that he was born with, because I remember lots of times we would have a tough game and we'd put up our signals as a fist that we were tired. And it was a couple games where I did it, and he'd come over to me and throw my arm down and say, "You're not going out." And just for someone telling you to stay in there, somehow you get that second win. So he never got tired. I got tired a couple times, but he just has such great, you know, desire and wanted to win so bad.
And win the Tar Heels did, with Ford at the controls, compiling an amazing 99-25 record from 1975 to 78. During that 4-year span, Carolina finished first in the regular season 3 times and won 2 tournament titles. Ford's end-to-end brilliance resulted in 3 All-ACC selections, 3 All-ACC tournament honors, and the 1978 Player of the Year award. Still, while many remember his artful passing or his pesky defense, Ford will always be remembered best for his near-flawless execution of one of basketball's unique inventions.
Well, the thing I remember most is seeing the four corners situation, and Phil pretty much held court. He had the ball, he controlled the whole situation, and in that way he dominated a basketball game. You couldn't take it away from him. You always had to worry about him making a penetration, and certainly had that mid-range jump shot that was incomparable.
You know, he was a great ball handler, and he always made very good decisions out on the floor, and that's the you know, that was the thing that made it so effective. And the other 4 guys on the court just fed off of him, and they got a lot of backdoor opportunities. They were able to eat up a lot of clock, and once they had a lead going down the stretch, it was a great weapon for them.
With Ford running it, it was such a good weapon that Dean Smith's creation eventually took on the name of his talented protege. Smith once even went so far to say that with Phil running the Ford corners, it was unfair to the other team. He was that good. Ford was also good when it mattered most, like in his last home game in '78, when Tar Heel fans packed Carmichael Auditorium to say goodbye. He responded with a career-high 34-point performance as UNC topped arch-rival Duke to finish first in the regular season.
We knew going in that he was going to be obviously pumped up to play. It was his last home game as a senior, and you know, we've all experienced that and had great moments. And it took that effort. I think they beat us by 4, and it took that effort by him to win that game. You know, if he has an average game for him, you know, we win by 10. And we were playing awfully well at the time, and he just, you know, he came up, and the great players do that. They have, you know, they have big games at the big times.
Ford capped his illustrious career at North Carolina by winning National Player of the Year honors in 1978 and was named Consensus All-American for the 2nd straight year.
A remarkable young man that came here as an honor student out of high school and probably even exceeded anybody's expectations, although we had high expectations. He was National Player of the Year, but what you can't picture on Phil, you can't measure that heart. Of all the close games, I mean, what a competitor. He was the one that just, his enthusiasm gave me confidence. He says I give him confidence. He gave me confidence first. I know I didn't want to take the Olympic job if he wasn't going to be on the team. I have that much confidence in him.
Every great team needs at least one player who can bomb away from the perimeter with consistent success. On most teams, this important role falls first to the shooting guard, a player whose hot or cold shooting can often mean the difference between victory and defeat. They've come in all shapes and sizes over the years, offering a wide variety of basketball skills, but the ACC's greatest shooting guards had one thing in common. They could all fill it up in a hurry. In 1966, North Carolina's Charlie Scott became the first black scholarship athlete in the South when he arrived in Chapel Hill from the playgrounds of New York City. Scott brought with him the kind of offensive explosiveness rarely seen from ACC backcourt players in years past. A three-time All-ACC pick and a member of 2 ACC title teams, Scott left a lasting impression on ACC basketball when he poured in 40 points in the 1969 ACC tournament final to lead the Tar Heels past Duke on the way to UNC's second straight trip to the Final Four. Scott went on to lead the ACC with 27 points a game in 1970 and still ranks among the top per-game scorers in ACC history. Wake Forest Charlie Davis, a fellow New Yorker who dueled with Scott for 2 years on ACC battlegrounds, had a stellar career with the Demon Deacons. At 6'1" and only 145 pounds, Davis didn't frighten opponents into retreat. He bombed them into oblivion, compiling a 25-point career scoring average that remains the best for any backcourt player in ACC history. Virginia's Jeff Lamp was the perfect example of a dead-eye shooting guard who used his perimeter skills to take the pressure off of his team's interior players. With a 6'5" Lamp gunning away from the outside in a lineup that included 7'4" center Ralph Sampson, Virginia opponents were forced to make some difficult, if not impossible, choices defensively. A 4-time All-ACC first or second team selection, Lamp finished as UVA's all-time leading scorer with more than 2,300 points and as the Cavs' top free throw shooter at 85%. Both career numbers also rank in the top 10 in the history of the league. Since the ACC was formed in 1953, no ACC player has scored more points than Duke's Johnny Dawkins. With a combination of shooting range and cat-like quickness, the 6'2" Dawkins lit it up with a variety of fast-break rushes and long-range jumpers in leading Duke from the bottom of the ACC to the 1986 NCAA title game. A 2-time consensus All-American and the 1986 National Player of the Year, Dawkins also reaped more than his share of conference awards, including 4 All-ACC first or second team selections and 3 All-ACC tournament honors. A superb passer and ball handler who could slide over to play an excellent point guard when needed, Dawkins and Phil Ford are the only players in ACC history to rank in the conference's top 20 in both points and assists. North Carolina State's Rodney Monroe made great use of the college game's most important recent innovation, the three-point shot. Monroe, a pure shooter from a set position or coming off a screen, connected on 322 threes in his 4-year career, second most in league history, at an amazing rate of 44%. Monroe, who won the ACC Player of the Year award in 1991, finished his career with 2,551 points, most in Wolfpack history and third on the ACC's all-time list. The fans' choice as the greatest shooting guard in ACC history was an easy one.
Down by 3, a minute 13 left in the game.
Oh, a good solid screen.
To tie it, and then out, tip is good. Michael Jordan. It's a 1-point lead. Michael Jordan now with 14 points. Virginia leads by 1 with 1 minute to play.
Michael Jordan, remember, has 4 fouls on him. He's playing very aggressively. There's a steal.
Jordan takes it away from Carlisle. Bam, and the Tar Heels go in front with 50 seconds to play. 64-63, and Carmichael just erupted.
Unbelievable. Michael Jordan is so quick.
What made him a great collegiate was his competitive nature. Michael hated to lose. I mean, we'd get in arguments over pickup games in the summer. It'd come down to a point game in Carmichael, and Michael would drive to the basket and he'd knock the ball out of his hands and he'd call a foul. And I'd say, no, that wasn't a foul, and I'd start walking the other end of the court, and he'd hold the ball and he'd say it was a foul, and for about 10 minutes we'd stand there and argue, and he didn't like to lose. And that's why I think he has always played on championship teams. That's why he will make big-time shots late game. He'll make the big plays, and he always has.
After Jordan ended his freshman season with the game-winning shot against Georgetown in the NCAA Finals, his reputation grew quickly, and so did he. Number 23 sprouted 2 inches to 6'6" and continued to turn heads with excellent play at both ends of the floor.
The thing that struck me his sophomore year was how much stronger he was. He looked bigger. He just looked more like a man. As a freshman, he was a great player and he hits the shot, but as a sophomore, he came back and he looked so much bigger. And that scared you because you knew how great he could be. But what he was one of those players in the ACC that as an opponent in the ACC, you were proud to be on the floor with. I mean, you were excited every time you suited up and you looked over there in warm-ups and it was Michael Jordan standing over there. You might have been a little scared, but it was the kind of thing that you knew your buddies were watching on TV at home saying, hey, there's Terry and there's Michael Jordan on that same floor. And that's what really got you excited. There weren't many of those players that had that kind of presence, but Michael was one of those. So in a way, I guess I knew early on that, yeah, he was one of those special players.
It wasn't unusual for Jordan to leave teammates and opponents alike wondering, how did he do that? As he developed a special knack for making the kind of spectacular play that could leave a lasting impression.
Let's reset the stage for you. It's North Carolina 72, Maryland 71. The Terps with the basketball, 5 seconds left. Adkins to Chuck Drizel. Drizel drives the baseline, it's blocked. Ball's out of bounds, there is no time left on the clock.
The first option was Adrian Branch popping out. Well, at the top of the key, well, Michael Jordan jumped out to try to steal that pass, and he's at the top of the key, right? Now, my son's going underneath the basket for a layup. Most guys would have made that one effort and stopped, but he came all the way back. Otherwise, you know, Chuck was wide open for a layup. But he was a great example of how the guy plays hard on defense and offense. Everybody thinks of him as a great offensive player, but Michael Jordan's a great defensive player. He plays both ends of the court, and I never will forget that play because I looked at it over and over on the film. He was at the top of the key. The ball, Chuck caught the ball about, you know, at the free throw line. He turned around and came all the way back and blocked the shot.
He made great play after great play, and quite often they were not necessarily spectacular plays, not the kind of plays that fans realized were such spectacular plays. He was probably at the college level more known among the coaches as an example of when he came out after his junior year. A lot of people said, well, why would Jordan be leaving college? He might be player of the year next year at the college ranks. And I said, well, I can tell you this, the ACC coaches know how good he is. In fact, if you ask the other ACC coaches to take up a collection to pay his salary in the NBA for the first year, we'd all be standing in line to contribute to that. That's how good Jordan was as a college player.
In Jordan's 3 years in Chapel Hill, the Tar Heels went an unbelievable 38-4 in the ACC and 88-13 overall, as Jordan went from ACC Rookie of the Year in '82 to ACC Player of the Year in '84. On the national scene, the Tar Heels' two-time All-American earned National Player of the Year honors in 1984 and led the United States to gold medals at both the '83 Pan American Games and the '84 Olympics in Los Angeles. Still, his place in many people's hearts can be traced to one magical moment.
Glenn Bias had the shot blocked by Sam Perkins. I guess that is a pretty fitting end to the ballgame. Jordan, look at that! Holy cow!
He had the ability to almost levitate through the air. We used to say that the rest of us were made of flesh and blood, and he had helium running through his veins because he could just fly through the air. I mean, we've all seen him now, but back then I remember he made a dunk against Maryland toward the end of the game, and we were watching on television and just fell all about the floor when we saw him do it. It was one of those windmill dunks that he's patented by now, and we even watched the Carolina basketball show that Sunday just to get another look at it. It was really amazing, and he was just an amazing player.
That dunk probably was the first time anybody said, this kid is really going to be unbelievably special. You could see it coming when he got the ball at midcourt because of the context of the game and the way it happened. But when he cupped the ball behind him and then turned sideways to the basket, you knew everybody was in such anticipation of it and how special this might be. And when he finished it off, the first thing that came to my mind was holy cow, because you can't say anything else. You can't use other phrases. He really turned out to be just as special as that moment. And that happens maybe once in a lifetime.
Soon after the inception of the Atlantic Coast Conference in 1953, North Carolina's Lenny Rosenbluth brought the fledgling ACC to much-needed national prominence. An all-ACC pick all 3 years at UNC, Rosenbluth became the conference's first National Player of the Year in 1957, leading Frank McGuire's squad past Wilt Chamberlain in Kansas to give the Tar Heels a perfect 32-0 season and the ACC its first national championship. 35 years later, Rosie's career scoring average of 27 points per game still ranks third on the ACC's all-time leaderboard. 6 years later, in 1963, Duke's Art Heyman became the ACC's second National Player of the Year. Brash and rugged at 6'5" and 205 pounds, Heyman's trademark was a powerful bull rush to the basket, where he usually picked up a bucket, a foul, or both. His unique talents earned him 3 All-ACC selections and 3 All-ACC tournament honors in his spectacular 3-year career. During his award-winning senior season, Heyman led the Blue Devils to a 27-3 record, an ACC championship, and a number 2 national ranking. His career averages of 25 points and 11 rebounds a game still rank among the best in league history. Jeff Mullen started his Duke career backing up Art Heyman, but soon found his own spotlight following in Heyman's footsteps to become a 3-time All-ACC and All-Tournament selection and a 1964 first-team All-American. During his outstanding career, Duke captured 2 ACC titles, went to 2 Final Fours, and finished in the nation's top 10 3 times. From his small forward slot at North Carolina, Larry Miller became the first and only player in ACC history to be named a 2-time ACC Player of the Year and a 2-time ACC Tournament Most Valuable Player. Miller's magical years in Chapel Hill were 1967 and 68, when Captain Clutch showcased his picture-perfect left-handed jump shot to lead the Tar Heels to consecutive ACC titles and Final Four appearances. Miller's greatest performance came in the 67 ACC tournament finale, when he hit 13 of 14 field goal attempts against Duke to bring Dean Smith his first ACC tournament championship. But the best small forward of them all may have also been the greatest player in the history of the Atlantic Coast Conference. Those who witnessed David Thompson's wizardry at North Carolina State in the early 1970s will swear that there was nothing he couldn't do on a basketball court. And they may have been right. King David's reign was a 3-year string of success from 1973 to 75 that included every individual and team accomplishment imaginable. David Thompson was truly the inspiration for dream teams everywhere.
We got sick and tired of watching David Thompson and all those guys who won the '74 championship because, you know, Coach V was big into films and into history, the history of the game. So he showed us those films time and time again. Anytime we had a big game, there was a different David Thompson game that he pulled out of the file and we had to watch it. And, you know, Derek Wittenberg said after we won the championship, he said the best thing about it is we no longer have to watch the '74 championship team.
Well, I had a chance to see David Thompson as a high school player and watched him develop in his years at NC State, and I can honestly say, as far as a college basketball player, he was the most spectacular that I've ever seen. I caught myself one time actually standing up and clapping for one of the plays that he made. He was that spectacular as a college basketball player.
Thompson was ineligible for the varsity as a freshman at North Carolina State in 1972. But not even the last season of the NCAA's freshman ineligibility rule could keep the Thompson legend from growing. With the help of fellow freshmen Monty Tao and Tim Stoddard, Thompson innocently altered the path of college basketball one afternoon in Reynolds Coliseum.
It was the last year that freshmen were not eligible to play varsity competition, so every day we scrimmaged against the varsity in practice. And David was so good that anytime he caught the ball against anybody, he was able to score. So I think Coach Sloan told the varsity player who was covering him, I think it was Steve Graham, he said, "Don't let David catch the ball." So one day they were denying him the ball up about the top of the key, and he went back door, and I threw a pass that looked like it was going out of the gym, and David jumped up and caught it, laid it in the basket, and Coach Sloan said, "Hey, that looks pretty good, let's try that again."
A rather cleverly conceived play, because if you let the guy catch the ball at the top of the key, he'd shoot it in the basket. So if you went out there, as we all did in those days, we were going to deny the passing lanes. He'd just take that step and he was gone. So I remember being very impressed with it then and impressed with it every time I saw it. And you think after you saw it enough you could defend it, but there was no defense against it.
It didn't take long for North Carolina State opponents to realize that the seemingly simple play wasn't the only unstoppable element in Dazzling Dave's bag of tricks. Thompson's arsenal also included an excellent mid-range jump shot and a variety of slashing moves to the baskets. True to form, one of Thompson's best efforts came in the first ACC contest ever televised nationally.
With about 16 seconds to go in the ball game, we got a tie score. We're on national TV. We have the ball out of bounds. Took the ball out at midcourt. I told him, let's use our favorite out-of-bounds play. Get the ball to David.
And I said, look, don't let David Thompson touch that thing. You got to make Burleson or somebody shoot and push. Don't let Burleson get underneath, make him go outside. So he goes outside, and I said, whatever you do when the shot goes up, whoever takes it, block David. Bob Bodell was guarding David Thompson. I said, you got to block him off the board. So sure enough, Burleson pulls way out, shoots a bad shot.
He just threw it at the basket. And the ball went in, hit that basket and went straight up in the air. And David, of course, went up and got it because everybody was between him and the ball, nobody to check him out. And he messed around with it in the air for a while and then dropped it in as he went by the basket on the way down. And we won that ball game. The thing I remember about that was Bones McKinney running up to me immediately after the game. He said, now, Norm, don't be a fool. Don't be a fool. He said, take credit for that. Tell him that was a design play, you know. And so I did. And sure enough, people started writing it down. You know, I said, tell him, you know, the hardest part was Tom. He had to learn to hit that rim just right. But David's part was easy.
Over 3 seasons, David Thompson's teams went 32-4 in the ACC, captured 2 ACC titles, had an undefeated season in 1973, and a national championship in '74 that ended UCLA's 7-year NCAA reign. Individually, there's truly no basketball award that Thompson didn't win. He was a 3-time consensus All-American, 3-time ACC Player of the Year, 3-time All-ACC Tournament, and a 2-time National Player of the Year. Almost 20 years later, he remains the most common source of superlatives in ACC history.
Well, I think David Thompson is probably the best player that played in the league. That covers a lot of players, but I guarded him with 6'10" people and 6'4" people and 6'6" people, and you couldn't stop him. I mean, he was unstoppable. You'd look, the game would be over, and you'd think you did a pretty good job of stopping him. He'd still have 37 points or 35 points. In all my years in the ACC, I didn't know how to stop him. Couldn't stop him.
The big forward, the strong forward, the power forward. Whatever name is ticketed to the position, its common denominator is strength. The rule is might makes right in college basketball when the objective is clearing the defensive boards, challenging a penetrating opponent, or finishing with authority on the fast break. North Carolina's Billy Cunningham was known as the Kangaroo Kid for his exceptional leaping ability. He led the ACC in rebounding 3 times and in scoring twice on his way to 3 consecutive first-team All-ACC selections and the 1965 Player of the Year award. As a high school senior in 1970, long before the days of recruiting hotlines and prep newsletters, Tom McMillan graced the cover of Sports Illustrated under the caption, "The Best High School Player in America." He managed to live up to those lofty expectations at Maryland, leading Lefty Drizel's Terrapins into national prominence in the process. McMillan was All-ACC twice, 3 times All-Tournament, and finished with a 21-point career scoring average that remains tops in Maryland history. James Worthy was a powerful force for North Carolina in 1982, topping off an already impressive collegiate career with one of the most remarkable seasons in college basketball history. Feared for his powerful moves to the basket and his seemingly limitless offensive arsenal, Worthy led the 82 Tar Heels to a 32-2 record, a 2nd straight ACC title, a 2nd straight Final Four appearance, and Dean Smith's first national championship. Along the way, Worthy scooped up consensus All-America honors, the ACC Tournament Most Valuable Player Award, and the NCAA Tournament MVP Award. Maryland's Len Bias is one of only 7 players in ACC history able to repeat as Conference Player of the Year. Bias pulled off that feat in 1985 and '86, 1 year after earning ACC Tournament MVP honors in the Terrapins' run to the conference crown. Bias's outstanding achievements were recognized with his consensus All-America selection in 1986 and the retirement of his famous number 34, the only number ever so honored at Maryland. But the fans' choice for the top big forward is Danny Ferry, who came to Duke as a fresh-faced kid from Bowie, Maryland. By the time he left, he gave a new meaning to the word versatility and a new concept to the big forward position. From the day he arrived in Durham, he already had unique skills for a 6'10" big man, the product of a lifelong love of ACC basketball and some tough competition at an early age.
When it was time to pick a school, I knew exactly that I wanted to play in this conference and really only looked at the schools in this conference just because I had been grown up on it somewhat, living in the D.C. area.
I remember playing against Danny Ferry when he was a sophomore in high school. He'd come down to Cole Fieldhouse and scrimmage with a lot of the pros who would scrimmage during the summer. And he pretty much learned his trade there. And that's something that's invaluable, to have that experience, that floor experience, to recognize how the game is played, how people are set up. I mean, you think of a Larry Bird in the same fashion, someone who not only has the skill to play the game, but also has the intellect to know what situations are about to come up, to recognize certain situations and then make the most of them.
Danny had, and still does have, the ability to dribble the basketball. And since he wasn't usually matched up against a smaller, quicker guy, he usually was dribbling it against somebody who didn't know how to defend the dribble. And he could position the basketball with a dribble. He had an uncommon feel for the game and how to make other people better.
Ferry may have offered as great a variety of skills as any player in the history of the ACC. He scored more than 2,000 points with an arsenal of offensive weapons that ranged from the 21-foot jumper to the off-balance leaner in the lane. He grabbed more than 1,000 rebounds by combining his considerable size with soft hands and an uncanny knack for being in the right place at the right time. And he compiled more than 500 assists with a sleight of hand that would have made even the slickest point guard proud.
Nice great pass to Bricky Ferry with another assist. Maybe the best passing big man in the country. Nice speed.
Yeah, I thought he always had a guard's mind and a big guy's body. Because of how big he was, his passing ability was even more pronounced in the fact that he had different angles. You know, a guard would look this way, Danny would look this way, and he could see people a lot better. Very unique basketball player.
Today, Ferry stands as the only player in ACC history to surpass the 2,000-point, 1,000 rebound, and 500 assist plateaus. Ferry's unique abilities translated into an avalanche of individual and team rewards between 1986 and '89 as Mike Krzyzewski's Blue Devils returned the Duke program to national prominence, winning 2 ACC tournaments and advancing to 3 Final Fours. Ferry was recognized in that span with 2 ACC Player of the Year awards, 2 All-ACC tournament selections, and 2 Consensus All-America honors. Some say his rare combination of size and skill represent a perfect illustration of the kind of players expected to be the superstars of the 21st century.
I think Danny Ferry is a prototype of today's big guy. He gives you another shooter in the lineup, capable of going out the three-point range. Very difficult to get a 4-man to go out and guard somebody there. As you can imagine, then it's tremendously difficult to get a 5-man to go out and guard someone out there. And not only could Ferry shoot the ball from there as well as play inside, but he was a tremendous passer. And when you combine all those attributes, you have, again, what I would consider the classic prototype of a big man in today's college basketball game. So I think Danny was the first of those types of players who can literally lead a team to a national championship or certainly national prominence.
It's been said that a bad team with a great center becomes a good team, and that a good team with a great center becomes a great team. Such is the importance of the center in college basketball. And when it comes to centers, the ACC has had some of the best in college basketball history. Dickie Hemrick was the league's first star, being named Player of the Year in each of the league's first 2 seasons. Hemrick finished as the NCAA's all-time leading scorer, and his 36 rebounds in 1 game is still an ACC record. At 7'4", Tom Burleson was used to being the center of attention long before arriving at North Carolina State. But as the man in the middle for Norm Sloan's 1973 and 74 teams, Burleson left his mark as the anchor of a squad that went 57-1 over the 2 years and claimed the ACC's 2nd national championship. The long-armed Burleson, who twice led the league in rebounds, also left quite an impression at the ACC tournament, where he walked away with back-to-back MVP honors after consecutive Wolfpack championships in 1973 and 74. Clemson endured 6 straight losing seasons before Wayne Tree Rollins arrived on campus. With Rollins, the Tigers had 4 straight winning seasons for the first time in half a century. Tree was truly dominant on the defensive end, blocking more than 100 shots in each of his 4 seasons and leading the league twice in rebounding. At Duke in the late 1970s, Mike Gomensky combined his impressive 6'11" frame with an incredibly soft shooting touch to bring a new dimension to the center position. a three-time All-ACC and All-Tournament selection who led his team to the Final Four in 1978, the G-Man still stands as the number 3 shot blocker, number 4 scorer, and number 5 rebounder in the history of the ACC. Sam Perkins' 4-year stay at the University of North Carolina in the early 1980s was one of almost unprecedented success. Silent Sam, as they called him in Chapel Hill, was an all-NCAA tournament selection in 1982 during the Tar Heels' run to the national championship. He was also a 3-time All-ACC selection, 2-time All-ACC tournament choice, and as a freshman, the ACC tournament MVP. Also a 2-time consensus All-American, the multi-talented Perkins remains among the ACC's career leaders in points, rebounds, blocked shots, and field goal percentage.
I think I'm going with Virginia next semester.
That announcement in 1979 by towering high school senior Ralph Sampson ended months of speculation about the college choice of one of the most sought-after recruits in the history of college athletics. The Cavaliers were ecstatic as Sampson's decision dramatically changed the course of the Virginia basketball program. Terry Holland knew his Cavaliers were entering uncharted territory in more ways than one.
Before he had ever scored a single point or gotten a single rebound at the University of Virginia, the media crunch began. And everybody wanted an interview with Ralph Sampson. We had people coming in to do cover stories on him. Now, we had the returning scorer in the ACC coming back as a junior that year, and Jeff Lamp. Nobody wanted to interview Jeff Lamp, so the potential disaster for our basketball team was there. In other words, it'd be very easy to be jealous of Ralph Sampson, but it reached the ridiculous proportions so quickly. People magazine wanted to take a picture of Ralph with his head stuck up through the rim. Right away, our kids realized, hey, this is no fun for Ralph Sampson, this is no fun for us, and they banded together to protect him from the media, and they felt sympathetic toward him because of all that was going on right from the very beginning.
It was just like a culture shock, really, because you go to one environment to the next. And being 7 foot on campus, like everybody, my first year wanted to see how tall I really was. How tall is a 7'3", 7'4" guy? His freshman year on campus, and it was like adjustment because everybody came up to me a lot, and I kind of shied away from a lot of people my first year.
On the court, however, the 7'4" Sampson never shied away from anyone. As a freshman, he led the ACC in rebounding and blocked shots. Already, people on all sides were talking about Sampson as a once-in-a-lifetime performer, especially at the defensive end of the court.
He made you change your game plan so much offensively. In other words, how do you attack Ralph Sampson? What do you do when you take it inside and see that big guy there?
You never went in the paint, basically, is what you did. I certainly never went inside any colored area on the floor when Ralph was on the floor. Sure, you had to stay away from that area because no matter any kind of drive, he was going to come. He's so quick. He's 7'4", but yet he was such a great athlete that you'd think you'd have the shot up, and all of a sudden here he'd come out of nowhere. So we stayed away from him.
I can remember people saying that Ralph probably blocked more shots in the minds of his opponents than he actually had to out on the floor. He was a very intimidating presence and really changed the game. 99% of our opponents, I don't think were really ready for the challenge to go up against Ralph.
From 1981 through 1983, Sampson dominated college basketball in a way rarely seen before or since. While leading the Cavaliers to their 4 most successful seasons in history, number 50 joined college legends Oscar Robertson and Bill Walton as the only players to earn consensus National Player of the Year honors 3 times. During the same incredible span, Sampson joined David Thompson as the only players in conference history to be named ACC Player of the Year 3 times. Not surprisingly, a legend was born.
Well, Ralph Sampson was my first ACC game. I was the center as a freshman in '82-'83 and had to go up against him. And I remember being real excited about the game and a little bit apprehensive as well because I'd never played against a guy of his size or, of course, of his talent. And I remember going out to warm up going out on the floor. I was just ready to catch a glimpse of him to see just how big he was and get a feel for how it was going to be to play against him. He wasn't out there with the rest of the team, and I was thinking, hey, he didn't make the trip. This is great. But then he showed up later on and handed me 36 points, and they won the game. So it was a tough night.
Above all, almost no one could stop Ralph on his home court. During the Sampson era, the Cavaliers were an incredible 50-2 in University Hall. And it was only fitting that Ralph's last home game provided some heartfelt drama and the finishing touches on an amazing career.
Ralph Sampson will go to the free throw line for the front end of a 1-and-1. Sampson with a career high against Maryland, 21 points. He has hit 6 of 10 today. He could tie it and then put his team in the lead if he makes both. 2 free throws. This is not a 1-and-1. And he misses the first. So that the best Virginia is going to come out of this with 7 seconds left, is a tie. And then it's up to Maryland to decide its strategy. Ralph Sampson, the premier player in the world, with a free throw, and he missed it. In and out, tipped outside. Sampson has it, and he scored! 4 seconds left, and Maryland has called a timeout down to 2. It is simply hard to believe. Ralph Sampson missed 2 free throws. The ball kicks outside. Who gets the rebound? Ralph Sampson, and he scored. And
well, it was a funny game because I had told people that I need at least a couple hundred tickets to the game because I had friends and family coming, and they really didn't have a couple hundred tickets, so I bought everybody in the back door. And it was a good experience for me. Being my last game, my number was retired during that game. Craig Robinson really tapped the ball back out to me. I got the ball, turnaround shot, turnaround jump shot, and it went in and we won. It was a fitting way to end a career.
What would you do if you had to face this ACC Dream Team?
Well, I think that I would make sure that I had early dinner reservations after the game, that I would try to get as much camera time and throw in my coat or something as I could to help me with my recruiting so that someday I might be able to compete against a team like that. I don't think I would attack that team. I would just wait till the dust cleared and make sure I still had my guys so we could play the next game.
No, thank you. That's one of the reasons I never got into coaching, and thankfully I won't have to face that lineup anytime.
I think the best thing you could probably hope to do would be to pray.
The only way you could beat that team is if they all got sick. They maybe would give them some Polish sausage before the game, so they get a little bit sick. You just couldn't match up against that team.